Hey Cleveland, this is Anderson Varejão of the Cleveland Cavaliers. You are listening to the Sports Fix.
You are the voice of the Sports Fix. So pick up your phone now and call 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Off we go. Welcome in. Another edition of the Sports Fix is on the air. Every day we make it here, I go, man, hey, we made it here. Because sometimes that's a journey as it is. The things that come at you behind the scenes, just in the course of anything. It doesn't matter what you do. You know how it is. And, some days you go, man, I don't know, man. Maybe we're just not going to make it today. And then you do, just like anything, you wake up and you go, this isn't going to happen today. Work's not happening today. This is going wrong. That's going wrong, whatever. And then you get it done. You get it on the air. You get in the car. You get to work, whatever it is. And then you're like, well, I guess I'm glad I went ahead and did that anyway. But, hey, you keep it moving. And that's all that matters. And we're doing it. And we're here on the Sports Fix this week. Keeps on moving. Now we're into the good part. Basketball's back. Well, yeah, there was some basketball last night for sure. We're going to talk about that right off the bat. I'm telling you, man, what are we seeing here? And usually when we say that in Cleveland, it's attached to the complete opposite sentiment. Usually some ridiculous thing happened with one of these teams or whatever. And no, what in the hell are we seeing here, you guys, after they go to Memphis and dismantle the Grizzlies? Man, I saw a little line, in the Plain Dealers little write-up of the show. Just one little line just made me chuckle, and it said that in the building last night, staffers said that was the worst they had seen the Grizzlies get beat in 5 years plus, man. Just the people in the building, guys sweeping up are like, man, I mean, that's something. Memphis is a team, too. I like Memphis. And, I mean, man, they're not just beating everybody. They're beating everybody by double digits. But, man, they're smacking around all the playoff teams in the West. Man, we're going to get into it in a minute, but what are we watching here? I mean, seriously, I think that this is something coming together here that you just have to, you just have to go watch it. And you know what I mean? Just go through it. Don't even get too deep into it. Just enjoy it, because I got a funny feeling when this thing's over, people are going to go, man, that doesn't happen very often, the way they're doing this. We'll see. We're going to get into it in a minute. Last night, unbelievable, though, guys. A lot to get into today. Man, I'm excited for all kinds of reasons. My man, your friend and mine, John McMullen from the Sports Network here, national NFL analyst, always joins us to talk all the latest around football and with the Browns and all of that. John's been with the show for years. He's had some stuff going on. We've just had schedule conflicts and all kinds of stuff the last couple of weeks. I've been missing John, man. I mean, all throughout the chunk of the beginning of free agency, all the juicy stuff to get into. Today, we put a stop to that nonsense. John McMullen from the Sports Network joins us here. We're going to talk about all the things that have transpired in the last few weeks, the rule changes, all of that stuff. A lot of things to get into there. Cannot wait to have John join us. We're going to talk some Indians baseball, Cavs hoops, the NCAA. It's basketball time. Sweet 16 going on. Big Blue Nation has descended upon Cleveland. Will they leave? I'm telling you. I'll go through it in a minute. Re-look at the brackets here, man. I still think it ends here for Kentucky. I'll talk about it in a little bit. Guys, we got a lot to get into. Let's rock and roll. Let's do it. Welcome in to the Sports Fix. I'm your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers here each and every day, coordinating the madness that is the Sports Fix live at noon across the radio network. Consists of all kinds of places. Many of you listening live each and every day on TuneIn. TuneIn's radio app worldwide, one of the easiest, most accessible, most crystal clear ways to listen to the show no matter where you are in the world. Many of you listening on Spreaker and Mixler and their digital and mobile apps. No slight to them either. Tune in. It just seems that no matter where you're at, what you've got, I mean, it just seems to be the go-to if you need to listen to the show to go and get your fix. Anyways, welcome in all of you listening right on our home base, talking about your go-to, thesportsfix.net. That is the home base for all things Cleveland sports. Got a headline, news ticker, all of our replays of our show, links to listen to the live show, all of the different sites. You hear me run through these every day? The links are all right there. Our social media, it's not just linked. There's actually boxes on the page where you can tweet and Facebook, discuss things with us right there while you're on the page. Bookmark it, thesportsfix.net. Welcome in as well, all of you, as we say every day, all around the globe, Daddy. Globetrotters, 24/7, listening in digital delay on sites like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio network, on iTunes and on Stitcher Radio and CarPlay and SoundCloud and all the other platforms too, because everywhere that it listens live, you can also listen to the archive. So if this is your first time in, welcome in, and you can go back and listen to all of the broadcasts we've ever had, all the different guests, all that. It's on the archive sections of wherever you're enjoying the show right now. So welcome in if you're here the first time. If you're here every day, you guys know it. Without you, this doesn't happen. Welcome in to the Sports Fix. Use the phones, use the social media. Talk to me, baby, because you are the voice of the Sports Fix. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. 24 hours a day. The phone lines are open. Facebook and Twitter also 24/7. We are all about constant communication. I'm about to give the phone number again. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at the Sportsfix CLE. Email us, the sportsfix@AOL.com. Tentatively, Mike Brandenberry, of course, always joins us here on Thursdays as well. Kind of up in the air right now if Mike's going to be able to join us or not. I'm waiting to. Either way, he's going to be here today or he's going to be here tomorrow. But as you know, Mike educates the children of the future, and occasionally things get in the way of us doing our thing. So I'm waiting to find out. Either way, we're going to be talking some Tribe, but hopefully Mike's still able to join us. If not, he's here tomorrow. Either way, we're going to do our thing with Mike Brandenberry, all about, I don't know if you guys read his article I told you guys about yesterday about Francisco Lindor, but he stated the case, man, better than any episode of Law and Order. He made that closing argument right there, that's for sure. We're going to talk about that as well. Let's get rolling. We're not talking about anything else until we talk some Cavs hoops here right off the bat, man, because, again, going back to what I said, we in sports media and fans and everybody's into hyperbole. It happens all the time. You overstate things. You use cliches. We do it all the time. And seeing something special is a cliche on top of the cliches in sports. And you always hear people say, I'm telling you, this is a time that I can't think of a term that applies more so far than what we're seeing out of the Cavaliers. I mean, I'll tell you what, and there's a couple of things too. Not just, they're winning, not just all, because they've won games before. We did LeBron era part one. I mean, you've seen the Cavs dominate the league. You've seen them 61, 66 wins. You've seen all of that stuff, but something is different about this team because it's just the way it's constructed and the way that their pieces are coming together. They've got a lot of good pieces individually and some great ones, but man, this really, it's the sum of its parts being more than the individual pieces, man. And that is what you're seeing here. One of the stats that I saw going in before we get specifically into last night's game over the Grizzlies, and man, I mean, 111-89. I mean, you don't see that very often. And like I said, people in the building that work there saying, man, we haven't seen that in years, a team come in here and beat a Memphis team like that. But something interesting that I saw pointed out here in the last couple of hours, doing some research, reading the newspaper, looking at the Cavaliers, and it's David Blatt. And going back to, again, man, I've loved that guy from day one. I am so happy that he survived the turmoil at the beginning, and all of that. But here's a perfect, if you need an example, because some people, I think, still think that the Cavs are winning and the Cavs are doing all this in spite of their head coach. I know because some guys hit me up with it. There's still people that don't believe in David Blatt. There's still people that are convinced that it's LeBron and it doesn't matter who the coach is, blah blah blah. And I get that this is a player's game more than anything else. But if some of you guys may have seen, they were pointed out in the Plain Dealer, just an incredible little statistic, which is in the NBA regular season, because of the way that so many games are scheduled in, and you get a lot of the back-to-backs and the 3 games in 4 nights and stuff like that, and even some 4 games in 5 nights. Most of the time in the NBA, unless a team has 2 days off, has an extra day off between games, they don't do an official, an organized practice. That doesn't happen because you got to be fresh for the games. So think about this, and this will show you the season's almost over, and this only applies, what I'm about to say, 13 times throughout the course of the whole season, which is 13 different times this year now after last night. The Cavaliers have had the opportunity, 12, it's been a dozen, have had the opportunity to have a full practice before their next game. They don't lose when they do. No, I'm right. They're 12-1. That's right. Absolutely. It is 13 games. That's what I thought. Don't lose when they do. That speaks volumes. And that goes back to the beginning of the season. Even some of those games when they didn't have the new players, when they didn't change the roster out yet. That is a direct speaking to what happens when the team gets together to practice and David Blatt is allowed to coach them in a full practice. I mean, that speaks volumes, because when you get into the playoffs, that's every day. There's no more back-to-backs. There is none of that. They give teams time. They want teams to get ready. That's how you get a good series, because a team goes and adjusts. You can't adjust on the fly playing those games back-to-back like that. I mean, they want teams to be able to adjust, to keep these series moving back and forth and not have runaways and stuff like that. So if that's the case, and so far it has showed us that that's the case here this season, then that portends really well for the Cavs when you hit the playoffs, because that's the situation that they are going to be in. Yeah, 12-1 since the beginning of the season, when they've had the opportunity to practice between games, and the only one loss was still back early in the season, and that was on November 4th against the Blazers, and that was in that early part. And actually, that was the first one in the situation. So since then, 12 straight. And that's amazing. And again, I think that speaks to David Blatt and the ability of him. At the end of the day, it's X's and O's in basketball, and he's coached a ton of it. And it doesn't matter what the names are on the jerseys. Yeah, he's got some special pieces here to play with, but he's still a great coach. And that shows that when he gets a chance to sit down and you put a mind like his together with the offensive and basketball IQ that LeBron has, and that Kyrie Irving is starting to show that he has too. I mean, he's not just all play and nothing up between the ears. And clearly, he's a very cerebral basketball player too, and especially on the offensive end. So when you put all that together, man, obviously the results speak for themselves. And that's what I mean. When you look at the playoffs, that is exactly the formula you're going to have. After every game, win or lose, you're going to have the opportunity to regroup, film it, practice, complete practices, all of that stuff. So, good sign heading in. And I mean, good signs is just, you can use that word for everything that they're doing. Again, last night, 111-89, they go and take care of business against the Grizzlies in Memphis. And look, this is a good team. This is not just an okay team. The Grizz are big. They're big up front. They're experienced. They've had a group together for a long time. You know what I mean? Like that Grizzlies, I've kind of always liked them. I really thought their window, them in Oklahoma City were like Right, remember that classic series that they had a couple of years ago, man? And I really thought that Memphis was going to take the steps that Oklahoma City did a few years ago and be that team. I said, man, that Memphis team's going to be good. And then they've kind of stumbled. They've had to make some, moves with the roster here and there. But for the most part, I mean, that's a strong team. They're the number 2 seed. They have as much of a shot. I don't think they get out of the West. I mean, but they've got as much of a shot as anybody else, and they looked like they play a different game than the Cavaliers were playing last night. I mean, the Cavs were up 30 points on the second best team in the West. And I mean, talking about that with the West, we've talked about how well they've been playing there. You can just go ahead and add Memphis to the list of teams. It's all the best teams over there in the West. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And you look at the list of the teams that they have beat by double digits since the middle of January when they started this crazy run, East and West. It's the Bulls, the Thunder, the Clippers, the Heat, the Wizards, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Bucks, the Grizzlies. That's all playoff teams, most likely. All playoff teams, all getting steamrolled. I mean, so you're not just winning. You're not just beating the Philadelphias, and you're not just beating the teams that gave up on the season. You're beating teams that are fighting for playoff spots. You're beating teams that are the best in the game. I mean, you're losing on average, once every 2 or 3 weeks here. It's just, it's the way they're doing it. And that's the thing. All the talk of Kevin Love and we've been having some fun with the ridiculousness this week of the media with that. So you know what the Cavs did last night? They went out and showed, well, guess what, man? He is the secret weapon that we don't even have to use. I mean, say what you want. And I mean, I'm having some fun because, yeah, there's fit issues there that they've been working on, and we know that. But you really could just sum it up and say, man, they don't even need him because they're rolling. When he's just kind of trying to find a way to fit in, they're still rolling these teams. Then you look at last night and you see what happens when you get Kevin Love doing his thing. And there you go, talking about special, talk about going to another level. That fits all of those axioms right there, man, because he's in the post. He's at the elbow. He's going out for 3. He's all over the place. Just a fantastic performance for him last night. And like I said, when he's what was the one line I saw? So I said, man, when he's average, the Cavs are great. What are the Cavs when he's great? Again, that's your number 3. And when he has nights like last night, it wasn't just the points, 22 points, 10 boards, another double-double as he keeps doing it. But he was 10-13 from the field. That's incredibly efficient right there. And again, my favorite part of it is 9 of those 13 shots were not three-point shots. I mean, not that he's not a three-point shooter, but I love when his whole game is on display and when the other team has to worry about it, because that just makes him so much more of a weapon. But he just looked so comfortable, and I don't think it was coincidental the way that went down last night either. All this talk the last couple of days, and boom, first game back out there since, we're not best friends, and the Kevin Love show happened. And I appreciate that because that shows me, whether you want to give the credit to LeBron, David Blatt, whoever you want to give it to, somebody or multiple people knew that was the way we need to come out here tonight, because guess what that does? Shh, that silences all that noise for another couple of days because, oh, wow, where'd that come from? You know what I mean? So good stuff. And you can just keep going. I mean, there's no shortage of players, whether you're talking about J.R. Smith, who just continues to, I'll tell you what, man, that is so far the perfect example. And this is great because for years to come, we may have this example. And it could go south still. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I don't think so, because he clearly appreciates the situation that he came from and stepped into. But, man, talk about not judging the book by not by the cover, but by his own track record. It's not like people looked at J.R. Smith and said, oh, he's got a lot of tattoos, he must be a bad guy. He had all kinds of stuff, all kinds of issues and teammates and coaches and fines and all these things in the past. So, but that is the perfect example of my past is not my future, at least short term, because he has come here and really been man, him and Mozgov are two of the pieces that really just unlock. Mozgov, of course, with what he's brought and the way he just changed the way they defend and all of that. But, man, J.R. Smith, too. offensively and then defensively too, because that was a game. I remember talking to some guys when J.R. Smith came over, and besides the attitude and the stuff that I was worried about, I said, man, J.R. Smith doesn't always play defense anymore. Like he used to, and I knew that he could, because he was known for that at certain points in his career. But, whether it's playing in a bad situation or just, that obviously was part of it, because when the situation changed and the sunshine came out from behind the clouds, J.R. Smith came out and played in the sunshine, and he, again, is somebody you can't say enough about in what he's brought to the team on both sides of the ball, including the way he's shooting from three. And I mean, just it goes on and on across the board. Delly has calmed all the talk down about him not being good enough to run the backup point guard position, and he's actually really stepped up in the last couple of weeks as well. Not huge numbers, but I think he's averaging, the last couple of weeks, he's averaging about 6-7 points a game coming off the bench, and as well, he's fit into that role where the Cavs need him, and he's been stroking some threes lately too. And I'll tell you what, I saw that in the Plain Dealer too. I think he's got the third best 3-point percentage on the team for the season here. But in general, no matter which pieces you want to point to there, everybody is contributing, and it doesn't. And at this point, who do you stop to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers? And that's the question. That's when I say something special, because if you stop LeBron James, that's great. As we've seen, Kyrie Irving can individually beat people, and that's fine if you want to go after him. Then it just continues on. I mean, you want to go spend all your resources on stopping Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. Okay, I don't know how you do that, but if you're going to stop them both at the same time, that's great. And then you've still got J.R. Smith and Kevin Love, and the beat goes on. You've still got all of these other pieces that are contributing, and that is what I'm saying makes it so special. You guys know I've always said I liked Mo Williams, I love Delonte West on defense, but think about those Cavs teams, and they were better than people. Some people make it sound like they surrounded LeBron with a bunch of piles of garbage, and I won't go that far, but he didn't have this around him either. But what happened when you shut down 66 wins? What happens when you shut down LeBron James? Mo Williams better be able to beat you. You know what I mean? You better be able to get it down low to Z, and you better get a big game. I mean, because what are you going to do at that point? Unless Donyell Marshall or one of these other guys gets hot, Damon Jones, Boobie Gibson from three. I mean, Larry Hughes. Who else was going to beat you? That is not the scenario for this Cavaliers team, and we're only talking on the offensive side of the ball, because I'll go defense, and I'll say that the way these Cavs are playing defense, it's so reminiscent to me of the Heat run for the last 4 years. So things can change. Look, I'm not sitting here and trying to put the crown on the king before he's put up on the throne, but man, seriously, man, like, this is going to be a very special run here of this team that we're watching right here, and it's just going to be a lot of fun, you guys. And I really think that, to me, one of the coolest parts of it is what I've been saying for the last couple of days, is I don't think there can be a bad end for this season for Cavaliers fans. And I mean, maybe if you convince yourself that they're guaranteed to win the title, which, again, I say show me the team that's going to beat them in 4 out of 7. But even if you convince yourself that they've already got the title locked up and they lose, after about an hour or two of being upset, tell me that you linger on that, when this is the first year of this team coming back together after 4 years of being in the abyss of the NBA world. There's no way. You'll spend an hour, and again, I think they're going to win the whole thing, but you'll spend an hour or two being upset that it came to an end, and then you'll go, damn, that was just year one. Like, wait until we see where this thing goes in year 2, which was what everybody was saying back in October. I know I joke about throwing the parade in October, but for real, what was everybody saying back then? Well, they'll come close this year, but next year is what I'm really looking at. So the coolest thing to me is that there's going to be such a good feeling through this playoff run. I mean, I guess I could be wrong. I guess if you go out in the first round in 5 games or something, then yeah, that's a bad feeling. But I mean, and even then, I mean, I think still it wouldn't, well, maybe people would make disaster out of that. But I think anything beyond the second round of the playoffs is a short-term bump, and then everybody looks back and says, Cavs basketball is back. Wait till we see what they do here. They're going to have all this cap room coming up when the cap expands and all of this stuff. So I think that's what's kind of exciting to me, is the fact that this won't be a big woe is me thing no matter what. And then at the other end, then we're celebrating something really special. So it's going to be a fun couple of months here that starts really soon. And I like to see that the Cavaliers, like games like last night, make me feel good. Not just because of what they did, but the way Kevin Love played and the way they had a concerted effort to that, because they're still doing things. These aren't just 9 games. We're not hanging out until, as much as LeBron wishes we could just skip right, and I get that, but we're not just hanging out. There's still work to be done to take care of these little things that you will have to deal with when you get into the playoffs, and getting Kevin Love feeling good. That's it. All you got to do is drop a game like that every 3 or 4 games and focus on him. It'll keep him happy, and most importantly, man, it keeps them other teams honest, because they know that the minute you let off, he has the ability. He doesn't even have to do that, and that's why, when you look at like Chris Bosh having to take that step back, they know you can't. It's not like you can't do it. The ability is there at any time to say, okay, we're going to go with this type of game, but you don't, because option A is LeBron, option B is Kyrie. That's the killer thing about it. And as long as that guy is cool with sacrificing and taking that step back, and then you have to do what you did last night and pay him back every once in a while by having a game like that, because then he goes, okay, that's cool. I can deal with being number 3, because every couple weeks they let me take center stage and do the Kevin Love thing, and that's how you keep guys happy. That's how you keep that balance, and that's how you keep that other team going, man. We can't play lazy defense on Kevin Love, because Cleveland will be smart enough to just go, you know what? LeBron and Kyrie will be decoys, and we're going to run the offense through getting Kevin Love open, and you know what I mean? And then how are you going to beat that 4 out of 7 games? That's what I keep going back to, man, because on top of everything else, this is a very intelligent basketball team between just LeBron and Blatt, and as I said, some of the other players, very high basketball IQs by some of them, and I think in the playoffs, even when teams are going to beat the Cavs. They're not going to. Well, then again, the Bulls went 15-1 through that run one year, but the Cavs are not going to steamroll through everybody. They're going to lose games in the playoffs, but they're so smart basketball-wise that that's going to be hard for teams to do. Look, that's why they don't lose back-to-back games here during the season. It'll be even harder during the playoffs, because you're seeing the same teams every day, and if you've got really smart players and coaches, you can really start to pick apart the tendencies of the other team when you see them over the course of 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a week or two. So all good stuff, and last night was nothing but good stuff as well. Cavaliers continue the smorgasbord, guys, as they steamroll the Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis and go to town at the FedEx Forum, 111-89. Kevin Love, big game. Cavs have a day off before they take on Brooklyn, a team fighting for its playoff life, and I like that, because we're going to go to Brooklyn. They're trying to stay alive some way, somehow. They're not walking away from the Cavs easily, so another team that you've got to go beat and keep it moving. Then they come home for 3 in a row at the Q, because basketball right now is being played at the Q. That's why the Cavs are on the road. We'll get into that a little bit later. Let's take a break and get my man John McMullen back on the show, guys. We'll talk some more hoops later on, but we're going to switch and talk a little football. John hasn't been here in a few weeks. Got a lot to catch up on. We'll get his thoughts on NFL and Browns free agency so far. Some of the rule changes here. Hey, Bill Belichick's slick move, no longer legal in the NFL. And now it's cheating if you do it, but they did use that. We'll talk about that in a minute. And some changes, and I want to get his thoughts on Chris Borland and more. Talking NFL and Browns and all the goody football stuff with John McMullen from the Sports Network. Coming up next here on the Sports Fix.
Public service announcement from the Sports Fix. We here at the Sports Fix and our affiliates would like to apologize for any disturbing verbal actions, but remember, it's better having them trapped in a box than loose on the streets. Public service announcement from the Sports Fix. The Sports Fix, the sports show that cares.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Hey, Sports Fix fans, I'm Fred McLeod, TV voice of the Cavaliers. When I'm not busy taking elbows from my buddy Austin Carr, I'm tuning in to see what the guys are saying. Come on, Cavs!
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and
pour me out. This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
What's your fantasy to say?
Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history?
He won it! Milo hit a three-pointer on the sideline!
In-depth personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book. Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
You're listening to The Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live here, rolling on across the Sports Fix Radio Network. And to tell you what, coincidental here, didn't even plan it. Speaking of Good Thing and the song behind me, and Vince McKee, who you heard about in the break, tomorrow, pretty stoked because he's got a really cool, I happen to know what it is. He's got a really cool announcement, and he saved it for us here on the Sports Fix. We're going to break it tomorrow in the 1 o'clock hour. Vince McKee is going to join us, but let me just say this. It is going to, for him, it is probably going to change the scope of things, at least short term here, when it comes to at least his latest project. Of course, you know, his latest book, in which he heavily featured myself in it. I told him when he was done, I said, man, I had no clue there was going to be so many quotes in that. I mean, he just, he used it heavily, used the interview that we did. But his book about LeBron's return, which is ironic in its own way, as you guys know. But the LeBron James Redemption of a King, which it is flying off, and that's not hype. It's flying off the shelves. It's by far Vince's most successful book. Well, when he drops the news tomorrow, what's going to happen next is going to probably take that to another level. It's going to be good stuff, and I'm pretty proud that he chose us to break it. So tomorrow, Vince McKee's going to be here with some stuff to talk about. Jonathan Knight will be here tomorrow, too. It's going to be a great day, but we're here today, and I'm getting ready to have John McMullen back on the Sports Fix. It's been a few weeks. We have got a lot to catch up on here, you guys. Phones aren't open. I'm J-Rocc. You are part of the show, but you can't call, so be a part of the show on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. And by the way, Joe sent me a message during the break when we were talking about the Cavs. Here's just another stat to add. By how dominant they've been, leading the NBA, or excuse me, leading the Eastern Conference. No team has won as many blowouts as the Cavs. The Cavs, as of current day, have won 17 games by 15 or more points. No team in the East has blown teams out as much as the Cavs have. 17 wins by 15, and 15 is a huge margin in the NBA, man. That is an amazing stat. All right, guys, let's get back into it. Gonna talk some NFL football time here, and there's a lot to get into. So let's get into it with my man John McMullen from the Sports Network. John, welcome back to the Sports Fix, my friend.
Hey, thanks, buddy. Good to be back.
Good to have you back, man. And I mean, wow, I was saying it at the beginning of the show. I said the last few weeks, free agency, all the juicy stuff to get into. I said, so man, we've definitely got some catching up to do. But just in general, what are your thoughts on the first, month or few weeks here of free agency and the changes around the roster landscape of the entire NFL, not just here in Cleveland?
Well, I think free agency is one of those things where fans get very excited about big names, and I think the more prudent way to go about building things in the NFL is through the draft. And I think the teams that are targeted and the teams that follow that prescription, so to speak, are the ones that are successful, on a consistent basis. And, I always point to Green Bay first, and they do virtually nothing in free agency except sign their own. And you kind of saw it again this year. They get players like Randall Cobb and Brian Bulaga back with hometown discounts. And it's partially because of how they built things. And when you see players get to free agency and whether they're really, really good, like Ndamukong Suh, who's a tremendous player, or they're in a good situation playing around a bunch of good players like Byron Maxwell in Seattle, if players like that get to free agency, they're going to get overpaid. So you have to be very, very careful and realize, take a step back and remember free agency isn't just about 2015. It's about 2016, 2017. And that's where a lot of teams get into trouble. I know fans want to see the big names in their city, but that's not the way you do it in the NFL, and history has proven that.
Let me ask you, along those lines then, with the deals that we've seen so far, what do you think perhaps, who maybe would you put in that category of one or two guys who teams extremely overpaid for, and maybe the other one, and I've got one for you here, I think Jabal Sheard will be a guy in next year, people will look back as one of the best value pickups for the Patriots in free agency, but maybe on each side of the coin, who would you put a couple where you would say, man, the market really inflated that guy's final value, and then maybe the other end, who was a really good signing at a good price?
Well, the first guy you think about is Maxwell, because you look at what he played with in Seattle and the fact that Richard Sherman was on the other side and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor were playing safety. And it's not that he's not a good football player, but all of a sudden he's paid like, one of the top 5 cornerbacks in football, and he's just not. He's just a good, solid starter, but he got to free agency, and that's what happens. If you want the best corner, or outside of Darrelle Revis, who the Patriots declined his option, so we all know he's a top tier talent. But once a player like Byron Maxwell gets to free agency, people are going to overpay him, and Philadelphia certainly did that. I look at two superstars, though, and I brought up Sue before, and I'll bring up Darrelle Revis now. There's no question they're great players, and there's no question they're going to play tremendously well for their new teams. But, if you pay Ndamukong Suh what the Miami Dolphins paid him, that means you can't allocate those assets to other positions. And I think they're going to grow to understand that was not a good contract. Same thing with Darrelle Revis and the New York Jets. Not necessarily criticizing them as players, because they're really, really good players. But, it's just the nature of this salary cap era is you have to allocate assets to certain positions. And we all know quarterback is first, and then you can argue whether it's, pass rusher, left tackle, what have you. But to pay that kind of money to an interior lineman, to pay that kind of money for a cornerback, you got to question it. And you look at the history of this game, and it just seems time and time again, contracts like that never, ever work out. But one team I'd like to laud for in free agency is Indianapolis, and that's because they're close. They're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And I think when you are on the cusp of something special, that's when you go all in. And that's why when you pick up veteran players, that can possibly be the last piece of the puzzle to get you over the top. And obviously the Colts lost in the AFC Championship game. They have Andrew Luck, so they're going to be that window is going to be open for at least 3 or 4 years. So they bring in, players like Andre Johnson at wide receiver and Todd Herman's on the offensive line, Frank Gore at running back, and Trent Cole as a pass rusher. So, if another team like Cleveland picked up players like that, I'd be killing them. But if you're a team like the Colts on the cusp, I think that's when you make the move, and that's what they did.
And one thing, you hit it on the head, and I said, it's one thing when you question, and we talk about questioning what your team does, and here in Cleveland, they go hand in hand. I said, but there is a difference between being upset that a team doesn't do anything or address anything, and then being upset that they didn't go on the first day and sign those big ticket guys. Because I agree with you, most of the time you're getting paid on past production instead of future, and it really is so much a scheme thing of where you came from, and that's why so many times when guys go the next place, it's like they're a different player, and people are like, man, what happened to so-and-so? And there's a lot of reasons. Maybe they let themselves go a little bit. They don't have the hunger. They got paid. That's always part of it too. But part of it is, like you said, when you had a top-level guy on the opposite side of you in the backfield or whatever it may be. And, sometimes people don't look at that. You know what? Talking about, you mentioned the Browns. Let's talk a little bit there in general. Guys in and out on both sides. And at the beginning, it was definitely more in the guys out direction. And, the thing that I have issues with is losing your own guys. I just, I understand that there's a price point and a choke point and all kinds of stuff like that. But, a team like the Browns has so much trouble developing guys to begin with and drafting well and actually having them work out the last 10 years that when it does hurt to watch the Buster Screens. And I'm not the biggest Buster Screen fan, but just the fact that he was one of your guys that you developed and that you thought was going to be around a couple more years. I love Jabal Sheard. I think he's going to be a hell of a pickup substitution wise for the Patriots over there, going to fit right into what Bill Belichick does. But Cameron was going, he had his mind made up to go no matter what. But point being is they were your guys that went out, but they did make some moves. What are your thoughts on the entire, so far, just the free agency, losing the guys and where they went? Screen goes to the Jets, Hoyer goes to Houston, and then they bring in McCown. Curious your thoughts on that. We've been joking about your tweet the day they signed McCown that said, boy, McCown to Heartline, must have fans in Cleveland excited or whatever. But, what are your thoughts on the Browns' approach to free agency, who they lost and who they've gained so far?
Well, they're one of those teams that I don't see a real long-term plan, to be perfectly honest. And obviously it starts at quarterback, and it always does. And the fact that, you're bringing in a 35-year-old guy who is coming off a really, really bad year. And if you look at his history as a journeyman quarterback, and you had really one stretch of solid play when he was in Chicago and replaced Jay Cutler a couple of years ago. Yeah. But then you look at what he had around him, and Brandon Marshall was playing at a high level, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett, and they're all 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" receivers in Bennett's case. And that's what McCown does well, is he throws those those fades and those 50-50 balls, and he really places them in a nice spot. So big receivers like that can go up and get the football. Well, I don't see that in Cleveland. And obviously you have to have somebody play at the quarterback position, and you have to be successful in this league. It has to be at a high level. And we've talked about it in the past. If you're looking for a quarterback, this is not the year to be doing so. There's really only 2 in the draft. And if you're not, Jameis Winston's going number 1 overall. There's no question about that. Marcus Mariota's going to go wherever he ends up, whether it's 2, 5, 6. He's not going to be on the board long. So that and the fact that they're the best free agents were probably, Mark Sanchez. And if you think about Josh McCown, whether it was, he was traveling around the country before the Browns signed him like he was Joe Montana, making trips to Buffalo. And I mean, that's how desperate teams were.
You're right.
So it's, understood you have to have somebody to play the position because Johnny Manziel's obviously not ready. But why move on from Brian Hoyer, a Cleveland kid who is, again, not the long-term answer. We understand that. We understand all the problems he had, as the season went on last year. But he also had some good moments, and he's in the system. He knows the system. He's a hometown kid. I don't understand. I don't understand moving on from him for Josh McCown, who, again, is 35, is just bouncing around from Chicago to Tampa and now Cleveland. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and that translates to a number of the other positions. Now, obviously, it's not, Ray Farmer's fault that Josh Gordon is an idiot. But it is, the organization's problem that they continued to count on this guy that you kind of knew you couldn't count on. So all of a sudden he's gone for another year, and you bring in receivers like Brian Hartline and Dwayne Bowe, and they're not going to wow you outside the numbers. Bowe's got kind of a big name, perfect example. I'm sure some of the fans were excited about seeing Dwayne Bowe. Think about this era of football, Jerry, and the Kansas City Chiefs went 16 full games an entire NFL season without a touchdown to their wide receivers.
To any wide receivers.
Yeah,
I know.
To any wide receiver.
I know.
So, Dwayne Bowe's not exactly going to come in and be Josh Gordon from a couple of years ago. Or
no way.
And then if you look at what Charles Johnson is becoming in Minnesota, in that he was on the Browns practice squad.
I know.
Then you have to start talking about, who's making these personnel decisions. Why isn't he on that team? A big receiver, tremendously fast. He looks, it was a small sample size last year, but he looks like he's got a chance to be really, really good. And that's just another example of some of the things that I think are going on and I think are going wrong in Cleveland. And you mentioned Buster Skrine. We talked about the disaster last year's draft was, and not only Johnny Manziel but also Justin Gilbert. And I think Buster Skrine, take away the penalties and understand that that's the era of the NFL. Now, he had way too many. We understand that, but he played at a pretty high level last year. And what do? You bring in a Tramon Williams who's 32 years old. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And I was talking about, because you said it right, the teams that are right there, those are the guys you get. And I mentioned when the Browns signed those guys, I said it's clear to me what they are. Those kind of players, they'll buy you a win or maybe 2 on your season that you might not win by having those younger players there. So you can fool ownership and you can fool the fan base and you can go from a 5-win season to a 7-win season if you would have had, younger players maybe making a few mistakes. So it feels like that. It feels like artificially pumping up just to get a little bit, but you're not long term. You're still not developing. And here's the thing: you mentioned, go back to the quarterback when you say scratching your head. I'm not, because it is as clear as day to me with the Buster Screen and the Brian Hoyer decision that the Browns are 100%. I don't care what they tell the media. Their plan is for Johnny Manziel and Justin Gilbert to both be starting on opening day. Johnny Manziel is their quarterback next year. That's why he went to rehab when he did, so he could get out at the time that he will, so that they can start rebuilding his reputation in the media, so that they can hand him the football. And I truly believe that the biggest asset for Josh McCown was that he wasn't named Brian Hoyer and that he can be beaten out by Johnny Manziel. It feels to me like Johnny Manziel couldn't jump the 12-foot pole vault. So instead of telling him to work harder, the Browns lowered the pole to 10 foot and said, maybe you can do it now.
Well, I've never we've talked a long time going back to last year when they drafted him, and I've said it time and time again, and I've never really wavered from that. And the fact that when you take a player in the first round of the draft, you expect him to be a starter.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you, and certainly if you think about Ray Farmer's reputation, he's only got one more chance. I mean, you compound with the Gilbert pick, the Manziel pick, and now the off-the-field troubles with the texting scandal. I mean, he can't continue if he stumbles in this draft again. That's it for him. So
no doubt.
Obviously,
No doubt.
he's there's no question he's desirous for those picks to succeed. But that's not, that's not a criticism toward him. Any personnel guy in this league wants his top-tier picks to succeed. And I'm not ready to give up on Gilbert because he's a tremendously talented, physical skill set. And, if everything falls into place for him, I think he could be a legitimate starter in this league down the line.
I do too. I do too.
I thought he was a raw prospect, and I thought they drafted him too early. And I kind of expected what happened, but that doesn't mean he's never going to be able to play at this level. I have a lot more questions, obviously, over Johnny Manziel. And
same here.
The fact that I agree with you, and I do think they would like him to be the starter, doesn't mean he's going to be the starter. Because
and that's why McCown's here, just in case they have to have somebody to go out there and play quarterback,
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And he's shown no evidence, both on the field and off the field. Obviously off the field, but also on it, he's shown no evidence that he's ready to take over that position. But obviously that would be the best case scenario because, people are already talking about packaging the 2 first-round picks and going to get Mariota. I don't know how you can do that if you're
no
Cleveland.
Way. Yeah, no way. You can't.
It's just,
you can't.
Yeah, it would just, it would be signal. If you're Ray Farmer, you're basically saying, okay, I screwed up and I'm giving up and I'm pulling the plug, and I don't think he can afford to do that.
No, I mean I agree with you there. No matter when you say, well, he's going to do okay, but then you still, how do you stand there as a general manager? I know you're supposed to draft a quarterback every year. They don't mean take one at the top of the draft. They just mean somewhere in round 4, 5, 6. Make sure you get somebody to put on the practice squad every year and keep trying to find one. But you do it again exactly like you said. It's not going to happen. And plus, the Browns need as much talent as they can. You cannot afford to package what should be 2 impact starters at various positions, probably on both sides of the offensive line or wide receiver is where they'll attack in the first round. Offensive and defensive line or wide receiver. So you can't. You need too much to go up there and do that. I'm telling you, I honestly feel like Chip Kelly is just baiting the Browns and just waiting. I was joking when he said that I'm not going to mortgage my entire draft for that pick. I said, no, he wants to mortgage the Browns draft for it. He wants to convince the Browns to give him 2 draft picks for Sam Bradford, so then he can package those 3 draft picks or 4 draft picks together and go get the guy that he really wants. And he's hoping that the Browns are the team that falls for it.
Yeah, because I've heard Chip. Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't know what the heck Chip Kelly's doing either.
What are they doing up there? Talk to me about Philly,
but,
man.
He had said, and we all kind of laughed after he made the trade, which I thought was a horrific trade.
You talking about McCoy?
Part.
Yeah, McCoy.
But he had said that he had a first-round pick offer for Sam Bradford, and we all kind of laughed and said, "Are you kidding me? Come on, stop trolling us."
It's us. It was Cleveland.
And then, it kind of leaked out that it was the Browns offering a first-round pick for Sam Bradford.
I know.
I don't want to believe it. I don't believe it.
I don't want to believe it either, man. I don't want to believe it either, man.
If they did, yeah. I mean, at this point, Sam Bradford's pedigree and not a lot else. And I look at it, if you look at Nick Foles, who was a 3rd-round pick, it was 14-4 as a starter in Philadelphia over the past 2 seasons. And if you do the quick math on that, the Eagles won 20 games. They won 10 games in 10 games in Chip Kelly's first 2 years. So that's 20-12, and Nick Foles was 14-4. That means everybody else, Michael Vick and Mark Sanchez, they were under 500.
Yep.
So there was only one successful quarterback running that so-called high-powered offense, and it was Nick Foles. And the fact that, as I said, obviously other people are on the field, and at times I hate when people cite quarterbacks' one-loss records because there are 53 players trying to win an NFL game. But the bottom line is, when the Eagles had Nick Foles under center, they had success. When he wasn't, they didn't have success. Whereas Sam Bradford, obviously number 1 overall pick, but 18-31, I think, is his record as a starter with the Rams, and coming off consecutive seasons with a torn ACL, and
Right.
On top of that, a 2nd-round pick is going back to St. Louis from Philadelphia, not the other way around.
Right.
It just did. To this day, that trade doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I'm not a big Sam Bradford guy, and if the Cleveland Browns are, if Ray Farmer is, I think that's just another mistake, and you kind of have to hold your breath and hope they don't make that move.
You just laid it out. We talked about it last week, and I went through exactly what you did. Just the injuries alone, that alone. I remember how scared everybody was that Brian Hoyer couldn't come back from one, let alone back-to-back. And then we saw how quickly Bradford went back down because it happened against the Browns. But, man, I'm with you, and I did not understand that. Part of me wonders if Pat Shurmur did not explain, because that was the one successful season, the beginning of things for Sam Bradford was with Shurmur as his OC. Maybe you think that's part of the thinking, is that, he can coach him up there and put him back together with the coach he had success. I don't know what they're thinking, but I was like, wow, really? What a weird trade to flip-flop the quarterbacks like that.
Yeah, well, they kind of spun that his one successful season was with Shurmur in
I'm just
St.
guessing
Louis.
with that,
But
I don't know.
and I put successful in quotations because while he was the rookie of the year, it wasn't a great year for rookies. His passer rating was still under 80, which is not good in today's NFL, which is obviously skewed towards offense. If you have a starting quarterback that has a passer rating under 80, you're probably not going to be a very good team. And Nick Foles, the guy who, Chip Kelly doesn't like, I mean, his passer rating was the best in the NFL 2 years ago. During the year when Peyton Manning broke every single NFL record there was, single season, he didn't lead the league in passer rating. Nick Foles did. Peyton Manning was second. Other than pedigree and the fact that one guy was expected to be really, really good and one guy wasn't, everything from that point forward, Nick Foles has outplayed Sam Bradford. And for that reason alone, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I hope the Browns don't. I mean, I'm telling you, just something says they. I don't know, but I hope they don't for all of those reasons. You're listening to the Sports Fix, man. We're clicking over into hour 2 here. J-Rocc and John McMullen talking some football, and we've mentioned it a couple of times here. Let's switch over talking about the Browns and Ray Farmer. Everybody's all abuzz here today. That sources are being quoted that the NFL is ready to drop some hammers on the Browns and the Falcons. Of course, the Textgate. The Browns admitted texting during the games and all of that. We've talked about that before. Word is expect severe consequences here. When you hear that, what are your thoughts? Because obviously there's talks of 6-figure fines, draft picks. Are they talking a 3rd or 4th round draft pick? Are they talking a 1st or 2nd round draft pick? What do you think the Browns can expect as far as punishment here for Textgate?
Yeah, I love when you see those reports come out, and because the only thing that's consistent about Roger Goodell and the NFL is their inconsistency. So I think trying to cobble it together from what they did to the Patriots or the Saints, for Spygate or Bountygate, I think you're off base trying to do that. My best guess is still a hefty fine for transgressions that those two teams are accused of. Textgate and piping in fan noise is not really nearly as egregious as Spygate was, or Bountygate, or anything like that. So I can't see them taking draft picks away. I can't see them suspending people in the front office. If Ray Farmer were to get suspended, I couldn't imagine it would be a lengthy suspension by any stretch of the imagination. But I think, a 6-figure fine is probably in order and probably the way it's going to be. But to me, for Cleveland, that's all ancillary. The issue to me, and I've talked about it with you in the past, is the fact that, Ray Farmer, hired a coach to where he thought he could do that is the bigger issue to me, in a long-term sense. And we kind of talked about that. And I think Mike Pettin did a good job last year, but as I mentioned, I think it speaks to the fact that he's not a heavyweight in this profession. And I don't like a general manager hiring a guy because he thinks he can control him. And I think that's what that indicated. And that's the bigger concern for me, because I don't think any draft choices or anything like that are going anywhere.
Yeah, I hear you. And Mike Pettin, even through the craziness at the beginning and through this offseason here, everything about him has continued to. I keep saying, man, I don't know what else is going on internally, but that is the one kind of rock amongst all the turbulence around. I really have my respect level for Mike Pettin continues to grow, and I hear you there, because he doesn't have the cachet, as you like to say, to throw his weight around, but I do believe that he may be the one thing keeping things with the Browns from just completely falling off the tracks even more, because he does strike me as somebody that no matter what pieces are put, for him to work with, he's going to work with them the best that he can, and he's going to build a smash mouth football team, even with the handcuffs around him with whatever's going on.
Yeah, I thought he overachieved last year. So
yeah.
I think if there's one beacon you look for in that organization, I think it's him.
Yes.
And I think it's only going to improve, because being a first-time head coach in this league is very, very difficult, and you can try and study what other great coaches have done, but until you have to do it, until you go through it, until you have that experience, you're going to have some hiccups, and there's going to be a learning curve. So I think he's only going to improve from this point forward. And I can't necessarily say the same thing about the general manager, so I hope he starts making some good decisions because I haven't seen a lot of good decisions. And, you know, I know a lot of people didn't like Mike Lombardi there and Joe Banner, but they're looking a lot better now.
I'll tell
and,
you.
I think this draft is going to be make or break for Ray Farmer.
Oh, I agree there. I've said that all along. What you just said, nailed it. He has to hit on this draft. And I mean, look, obviously you can't separate the first round from the rest of the draft because that's what we keep saying. Well, he did well, otherwise, but those are the two big ones. But I mean, they have with the compensatory picks, it looks like they're going to have 13 or 14 picks in this draft unless they lose a couple here. And this is make or break, like you said, because I think you have to come out of this draft with depth. You have to add 7, 8, 9, 10 young bodies to your team, and 4 or 5, 6 of them have to be of the impact starting, or second level guys.
Yeah, and you're right about the draft. I mean, if you look at it, just like, if you want to consider, Joel Bitonio, if you want to consider him the first round pick and Justin Gilbert a second round pick, hey, it doesn't look bad because he played so well last season. But that's not the reality of the situation.
Right.
And
right.
You're always going to be judged on your first round picks, especially when you have a top 10 pick like Justin Gilbert. And obviously when you take a high-profile guy like Johnny Manziel, I mean, that's just the nature of it. And it's not, trying to pick on a guy. It's just, he's like every other general manager. If anybody else blindly misses on 2 first-round picks like that, they're going to get the same kind of criticism no matter what city they're in. And as I said, I still have high hopes for Gilbert. Not as much for Johnny Manziel, but again, you still remember Joe Hayden's still there. As we mentioned, Tramon Williams has a lot of experience with the Packers, a very successful franchise. So you have some depth at the cornerback position, but at some point, Gilbert's got to hit the field and he's got to start playing well.
For sure. One last Browns thing real quick. When we kind of went past it, you mentioned Bo earlier, and I just want to mention this. I'm with you. I mean, he's not stretching the field or anything like that at this point, but the reason that I don't want to say I was excited, but I thought that he was of what was available. I thought that he was, once you get past him, and a couple other receivers, I mean, it dropped way off in free agency. Now, upgrading and way upgrading are two different things. But the reason that I like Bo more than I would if he was just going to try to be forced into the number one receiver is I see Bo being able to be a hybrid tight end as well and fit some of that Jordan Cameron, the playbook stuff that they had because he was kind of that hybrid wide receiver tight end. I'm not saying one's just like the other, but I think Bo with a little bit of size, you could move him inside, play him in some packages at tight end, and I think that is where he could get some matchups and maybe help you. He's not, like you said, going to be outside the numbers. He's not going to be big chunks of yardage, but I do think that he's an upgrade at the position, and in that regard, if you utilize him as kind of a two-way player, I think he could give defenses a little bit more trouble than if you just stick him outside.
Well, yeah, he's still a good player. I don't want to criticize Dwayne Bowe as a player. He's been very successful in this league. He's had a lot of production, and he is a big receiver. He's not going to be able to give you snaps at tight end, but he can move inside in
That's
the
what
slot.
I mean.
That's certainly
yeah.
He can do those kinds of things. My bigger question is again, you're talking about a 30-year-old player, and you're talking about the Cleveland Browns. You're not talking about the Indianapolis Colts.
Yep.
When we talk about Williams, we're talking about, I think, a 32-year-old player. When you're talking about Randy Starks, for instance, basically 10-year veteran, 31. somewhere in that range.
Hartline was
it
the
make
youngest
a lot
of
of
them.
sense.
He was 27.
You know,
yeah.
are they better players? You know, Dwayne Bowe's probably the best receiver on that roster. I mean, he's better than Andrew Hawkins. He's better than Brian Hartline. He's better than, you know, Taylor Gabriel. Whoever you want to throw out there, he's a better receiver. You know, can Randy Starks play in this league? Yeah, he can play in this league. Williams has proven he can play for a very good team for a long time. And if you put him next to Joe Hayden, you know, he obviously doesn't have to be a shutdown guy. He can help. But this is not a team on the cusp of you know, forget about a Super Bowl contender. I don't think they've taken a step back as far as being a playoff contender. And then, you know, I mentioned those three. Obviously, the fourth and most important is the 35-year-old quarterback. This is a team that should be building with youth and getting, you know, young ascending players who are coming off their first contract in free agency that maybe don't have as big of names, but they're 25 or 26 and they have a ceiling as a player. That's the part of it that I don't understand.
Oh, and I hear you. And that's why when I talk about, you know, this draft and having 14 picks, you got to pull a bunch of young bodies. You just have to, you know, continue that influx of talent, the depth. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems for the Browns is even if you're okay with most of their starting positions, they have no depth at some of them to where, as we see, man, it quickly drops off. So the draft is going to be so important. Couple of things real quick before you go. Hey, Chris Borland, what were your thoughts on that situation? I hadn't had a chance to talk to since that, and I was impressed. Not only he made his decision, but I was kind of joking for a couple of days that he made a nice little payday for one season of football, and I can't lie. I was very impressed by the fact that he acknowledged it and said, hey, I don't want something I didn't earn. I'm going to give back 3/4 of my signing bonus because I only played for a year. But what are your thoughts on that and where maybe you could see that getting bigger and more people doing that here in the near future?
No, I don't think so. I think, you know, it's like any, you know, there's certain people in life that look at things differently. And most 24-year-olds like Chris Borland don't really think about their future. And he does. And, you know, he made a decision. And, you know, if he feels that way, I applaud him for going through that. I think people are kind of, you know, he wasn't going to get to keep that signing bonus money. So, I mean, that's just the nature of the game.
They were going to get it back one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, that you know, and people can say it's harsh. It's not harsh. That's just business. That's just in a legal sense. You can't set that precedent because then anyone could sign a big-term contract, you know, a free agent.
And retire.
Yeah, exactly. Retire the next day. I mean, you have to go get that money. So it wasn't like he was being gracious and handing that money back to the 49ers. He wasn't owed that money, and if you don't play out your contract, you don't get it. So that aspect of it, you know, that was just what was going to happen. So he could either do it on his own or you know, the 49ers would have done it for him. But you know, he walked away from a lot of money. He was a third-round pick, and most 24-year-olds don't make, you know, $500,000. And, you know, he played at such a high level last year that, you know, his second contract was going to be a monster. He was going to get upwards of, you know, 10, 11, maybe even more guaranteed $1 million. So he walked away from a lot of money, and there's not a lot of people that would do that.
I wanted to hear.
For that, for that reason, I don't think it's going to be a trend or anything of that nature. And it's just a thoughtful person. And again, most 24-year-olds aren't as mature as 40 and 50-year-olds who are thinking about the future. And he's just one that was.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man, talk about getting paid on that second contract. That was one I really was going, man. You talk about those young players that the Browns need to be going after. That was one I said, boy, when he comes up, boy, would I love to see him in some brown and orange because I liked him, man. I liked him in college, and I liked what he did in his first season. But I'll tell you what, we can talk about it more later. I'm interested in your thoughts, man. Dan Wismar, another guy on the show, is doing some research on this very thing, but we were talking about it the other other day, not that this starts a trend at the professional level, but what the reverberations of all this concussion stuff is going to be. And he is kind of working on some research and a theory of how this could be, at the going back to the prep level, the end of football, because you really can see a scenario 20, 30, not tomorrow, years from now, where, insurance premiums are so high that all of a sudden high school football is not a business that people are in anymore. And where does the development level begin if you get to that point? Because it's one thing to say we make billions so we can afford the insurance in the NFL, but when high schools are having to pay, six-figure premiums to have, because once a couple of concussion lawsuits happen, that's where it's going to shake down to, is down on that level. Can you see kind of where things are going here in the next couple decades?
Yeah, I've actually been writing about it for probably 3 years now. That's the biggest hurdle for the NFL long term, is the fact that, and even more so than insurance and the litigious aspect of it, is the fact that you have a whole generation of people now that are going to grow up and not want their kids playing football.
Oh yeah.
Specifically mothers and who don't want their kids at risk for being hurt. And the reality is there isn't a lot of concussions, certainly at the youth level of football, and we're talking, and anyone who's been seen a Pee Wee football up pretty much up to high school, there's not a lot of harsh contact and explosive plays where you see things like concussions happening. And I think that's where Dr. Marone got killed last week when he said playing youth football is safer than riding a skateboard, I think he said, and something else, and everyone just killed him. But statistics say that's completely true. But he was talking about youth football, and I think everyone just jumped on football. And obviously, playing NFL football,
yeah, it's not like riding a bike. Yeah,
yeah, even high school football is far more dangerous, and everyone understands that. He was talking about youth football, where again there isn't a lot of hard hitting, and where things like that are going to happen. But it doesn't matter. Perception is greater than reality, and as I said, you have a whole generation that's going to grow up and not want their kids playing football. The President of the United States said if he had a son, he wouldn't want him to play football.
LeBron said the same thing. LeBron James, he said, "Hey, I don't want my kid playing football." So.
So these are obviously high-profile people, and they have a big soapbox. Certainly Barack Obama, certainly LeBron James. These are people that people listen to. And that's an issue for the NFL, and I think that's the biggest issue for the long-term survival of the game. And the thing is, you have to educate people, and you have to make them understand that, it's a dangerous sport. When you get to the higher levels, there's no question about it. And I think most people understand that. I think most people who are playing in the NFL certainly understand they're playing a violent game and they can be hurt at any time. And they're willing, it's a risk-reward scenario, and they're willing to risk it for a lot of reasons, whether it be money, whether it be fame, or, we just talked about Chris Borland. As I said, there aren't a lot of 24-year-olds who can make $500,000 a year plus. And, if you're a first-round pick, you're making significantly more than that. So while there is a lot of risk, there's a ton of reward. And I think for right now, it's not going to be a big trend. But as far as the pool of future talent, and it starts early, that's going to be an issue, and that's going to be the biggest issue for the NFL.
John McMullen from the Sports Network joining us. Hey, NFL owners meetings as we wrap things up. Anything earth-shattering to you coming out of there? I know I saw they shut down Belichick's eligible, ineligible receiver. They went ahead and took care of that loophole. So now it will be committing a penalty if the Patriots or any other team tried to do that. I saw Belichick go. You know what? He had a great point. Seriously, when I can't believe that they will not put, and this is a little moot point, but they turn down the end zone cameras again. How many times do we watch games and they waste 10 minutes of our time looking at 16 different angles to see if a guy crossed the plane of the end zone or if his foot was here or there? And the NFL makes billions of dollars and they spend all of this money on ridiculous stuff, and they can't put a few cameras in every stadium in the end zone and make it a little easier to get the. I mean, again, it's a small thing in the big picture, but he had a great point when they're marking it as cost as one of the reasons that the NFL won't do it. How much can it cost to permanently station a few cameras in every stadium?
Yeah, they got kind of, I mean, that was a silly way to turn it down and talk.
I think it's a great idea. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want cameras everywhere, John? Why not?
And it's kind of ironic that Bill Belichick obviously is the one who wants it. But,
he wants more cameras.
I'm sure it'll happen eventually. The NFL's fond of tabling things and studying them, and we've seen technology advance everything from, not only football to things like tennis, where they have those sensors for the lines, and I don't see why you can't do that in the NFL, which is well over $10 billion a year. But, at times they're very, there's a lot of traditionalists that don't want change, and on other, they contradict themselves and they want to change the extra point and do all these goofy things. Like,
let me ask you. I'm going to ask you about that too. Yeah,
like the sport's not popular on its own, so. And, the Belichick, by the way, the ineligible player thing, I thought that was sour grapes. I really did. I think, that was a brilliant move by a guy who, saw, people can call it a loophole all they want. It wasn't a loophole. It was legal. And the fact that he thought of it and nobody else did isn't his fault.
I agree.
And I think Bill Vinovich, I was on in Baltimore last night, and obviously the Ravens fans didn't like hearing this, but Bill Vinovich was the referee in that game, and he told everyone Shane Vereen's not eligible, and I think he said don't cover him. But it's drilled into NFL players' minds that okay, there's a running back in the slot, we better cover him, and it's especially if it's Shane Vereen who can really catch the football. So to use him as a decoy, I thought it was a brilliant ploy. It obviously worked. And I think it was sour grapes to kind of, to me, it's sort of like strangling inventiveness and just, being a great chess player and just, trying to even the playing field for guys who can't compete with Bill Belichick on that level.
That's a great take. I figured that'd be where you were at. I saw that and I said, boy, they didn't waste any time on this one here. They made sure they took care of that. You mentioned the extra point as we wrap things up. I saw now, obviously they experimented with it in the preseason and they did see. I don't mind making the extra point harder. I absolutely don't, because it became so routine. I mean, I'm okay with that. You want to move it back, but I started hearing some of these crazy suggestions. Was it yesterday or the day before? Some of these, like you said, actually changing the scoring of the game and the way it's been played all these years. Like, I'm all about. I actually wouldn't mind certain things. Like, I guess playing with the idea of the defense being able to score points on a 2-point conversion. That's something I always liked in college. That I thought that could be interesting, because if you're going to go for 2, then there's a consequence and not just a missed opportunity, but there's a potential consequence. But anything more, it seemed like it was really like trying to come up with a 4-point shot in basketball or something like that, But what are your thoughts on where do you think they're going to go with the extra point? Because I don't mind making it harder. It could be a little more.
Well,
difficult.
I think it's. I don't think it's a step needed. I think they are going to change it in May, and I think it's going to be the law of unintended consequences. I don't think it's going to be a good thing. Okay. And while it is routine, for the most part, I think it speaks to just how talented not only the kickers are in the NFL, but also the long snappers and the holders. And people just take that for granted, and there's a reason you take it for granted, because those guys are so good at what they do. And I don't think taking it away because they've perfected it, it makes a lot of sense. Tell Tony Romo it doesn't matter, for the extra point. Occasionally, something does happen. and I think it's overreacting. And, one of the things, about moving it up, they've talked about moving it back to the 15-yard line.
Yeah.
And, most kickers are going to handle that with no problem. So what are you going to do from there? Go back to 25? And they've talked about moving it up to the 1 or the 1.5, and that'll encourage more teams to go for 2 points, which is a competitive football play, as they say. But then you have to talk about the safety issue. All the rules they really changed this week all had to do with safety. And then you're going to add another play where people can get hurt. Again, it's the law of unintended consequences, where people don't think 2 steps ahead. They only think about one thing. And it's a sport that's wildly popular and doesn't need fixing. So I don't understand why they're looking for problems that don't exist.
Many of you may not know what John meant with that, because there were a couple of small rule changes this week that aren't like big popular things to talk about or whatever. They had to do with safety, and one of them was about bunched up players and in the end zone. And you're right, like, you're going to pass that rule and then at the same time discuss moving them closer down to the end zone and compressing the space and then having them run a competitive football play. That's almost an exact contradiction of each other coming out of the same meaning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's
crazy.
And it's almost like a Chip Kelly press conference where he'll say one thing and 5 seconds later he'll say the exact opposite. And people think he's a genius. It's completely contradictory, and that's what That's what the law of unintended consequences is. You think you have a good idea, but you're only thinking about, point A to point B, and you don't think about things as they go farther along. And I think that's where the NFL is making a big mistake.
The butterfly effect. John McMullen, great conversation. Welcome back to the Sports Fix, and I believe we're going to stick with this Thursday time slot here, so looking forward to getting back into it. We got a lot, man. Not just free agency continuing to go on. The draft is coming up here. April camps will be coming around, a month from now? Not a little less than that. So we're rolling now, man. The new football year is on and running.
Yeah, football never ends. So,
the
draft is April 30th, and then we go mini camps and OTAs, mini camps, and then training camp, and you're off and running.
It's on, and I'm very glad to have you back. Welcome back. Glad to have you here with us, and we're going to have some fun talking football, man.
All right, thanks for having me, Jerry.
You got it. John McMullen, the man from the Sports Network, with us usually on Mondays. Now his day is Thursdays here on the Sports Fix. We're going to take a break. When we come back, talk some Tribe a little bit here. I'm going to open up the phones, 216-539-7535. Indians making some... Mike Brandenberry, if he was joining us today... he'd be one sad individual as his man. I'll talk about it when we come back. Order to 2,350 words for nothing, Mike. I'll just tell you that now. Lindor going down. Hey, man, it's what you thought. We're going to talk about it when we come back. Indians make some roster moves in the last hour as we get closer to opening day. We'll give you those moves when we come back. I want to take your calls. Give me a Tribe call, 216-539-7535. A couple other guys not making the opening day roster in the pitching department, as we've got a few of those names competing for that final spot whittled away, although one of them says he's not going anywhere. He's going to stick around with the Indians. Let's talk some Tribe roster moves when we come back. Take your calls and more. 216-539-7535. We'll be right back talking Tribe after the news here on the Sports Fix.
You don't find that
We here at the Sports Fix want to make all of your dreams come true.
What about my dream?
Edith, I told you I can't build your candy house. It will fall down. The sun will melt the candy. It won't work.
It will if it never rains.
Oh, maybe not all of them. Get your fix on the Sports Fix.
This is head coach Gary Waters at Cleveland State, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your automotive car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. They're open late Monday through Thursday until 9 p.m. and open early Saturday so you can check it off your to-do list and get on with your day. They also have a newly remodeled service lounge and additional service bay just for Quick Lane oil changes. Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck is located at 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 Bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 Bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck. That's QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Today on Save on Taxes, we ask 100 people what costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File.
Car seat. Oh, a pair of shoes.
The correct answer is nothing. When you use Free File, you get brand name software, tax prep, e-filing, and help with the new healthcare provisions, all for free.
So, did we win anything?
Everybody wins. freefile.irs.gov. It's fast, it's safe, it's free.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
News break.
I'm Christine Lisi. Here's what's happening. Patriots coach Bill Belichick let it rip at the NFL owners' meetings regarding his disappointment in the lack of end zone cameras. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting Belichick was angry that the league, with the billions it makes each year, isn't willing to spend the money to make officiating better and put cameras on the sidelines and goal lines to give referees better angles on replay reviews. Top prospect Randy Gregory told NFL.com he tested positive for marijuana at the Combine. In their latest mock drafts, ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr. had the former Nebraska pass rusher going 7th to the Bears. Todd McShay had him 5th going to the Redskins. North Carolina starting forward Kennedy Meeks, sprained knee, uncertain tonight in the Sweet 16 against Wisconsin. NBA, Thunder expects to know in a couple of days if there's a chance Kevin Durant returns this season. Durant has been dealing with pain in his surgically repaired right foot. Rockets point guard Pat Beverly will be meeting with specialists before deciding in the next week or so about potential season-ending wrist surgery. NHL Flyers forward Wayne Simmons' lower body injury is done for the rest of the regular season.
Sometimes it's easy to see a difference, and sometimes it's not. Valvoline Full Synthetic High Mileage with MaxLife technology is different, and you can see why at seeadifference.com. Valvoline, 140 years under the hood.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Indian fever. It's catching fire with everyone. Indian fever.
You better be catching fire, man. We're getting close to opening day, baby. Welcome back to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc with you here, rolling on in hour 2 of the Sports Fix here. A couple of things to get into. We're not quite done just yet. Going to talk some Indians baseball tribe actually getting into the business of getting ready for opening day here today as a flurry of roster moves made in the last 24 hours, including some of the latest here. And a big name comes off the board for Mike Brandenberry. If he was with us today, he'd be crushed. Tomorrow, we will lay the appropriate eulogy for the opening day services of Francisco Lindor as Mike Brandenberry. I will be the shoulder for him to lean on tomorrow. But anyways, we're going to talk about that here now. Phones are open. I've got some calls in the queue here. We'll get rolling. 216-539-7535. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. And Tribe fans, give me a call. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Going to go to the phones, go to your calls here in just a minute. Of course, talking about those roster changes going on and looking at how things are shaken down and shaping up. The battle for the fifth starting spot in the rotation got a little bit thinner as the Indians have let Wlecome and Bruce Chen and Downs all know that they were being optioned down to the minors. Downs and Wlecome still have decisions to make unless they've done it here since we've been on the air. Both of those guys still have decisions to make. But what I think is a cool thing, a very good thing for the Indians and this depth that we've talked about throughout the spring is Bruce Chen. He agreed. He said, "Hey, I'm cool. I'm going to go down to AAA and start the season there." So you've got an option there. I know that is not a change your season option, but I'm telling you, Bruce Chen can give you a start or two here, especially early on if needed. He'll be there. It's a good go-to. I'm sure it'll be like Daisuke a few years ago. If he gets an opportunity somewhere else first, he'll go. But I think if he's in a place where he can help somebody else, he may end up being in a place where he can help the Indians. But Tribe says very happy. Terry Francona said, "Hey, I'm thrilled that he's sticking around." And of course, because that really does add some good organizational depth there when you're trying to figure out how that's going to go. Scott Downs, Sean Wlecome as well, both didn't make the club, but they have chances to do the same thing as Chen, go down to AAA, but neither one has told the Indians yet what they're going to do there, but that continues to whittle that down. I mean, speaking of whittling it down, today the Indians follow up with even more moves. CC Lee, a guy a lot of people had pegged for the Major League bullpen, he is not going to open the season with the Indians. He's been optioned down to AAA today. Some people shaking their heads a little surprised at that, some people not. That now perhaps paves the way for a couple of different arms to end up in the bullpen there. Also, some of the changes made, guys reassigned to minor league camp, a whole group of guys, including Brian Price and Francisco Lindor, the infielder, the prospect, the guy so many people, Mike Brandenberry, if you read his article yesterday on didthetribewinlastnight.com, apparently the Indians didn't, because it's hard to read that. He laid it out there, 2,300 plus words about why the future is now. The future is in June for the Cleveland Indians. Francisco Lindor, and I'm okay with it. I really am. I do disagree with Mike on that. I just don't see 3 months being the biggest be-all, end-all. And I know what he's saying, because it's almost more an attitude and a mindset instead of just, is he going to, but he also makes you a better team. I understand that. And there's nothing that says that if a month or two, maybe the Indians there's no set in stone, wait until June, although if you wait until June, otherwise you might as well have started him at the beginning when it comes to the service time. But, changes can happen in the meantime. But hey, he'll be there soon enough. He will be there soon enough. And again, it's not one that I'm going to go absolutely nuts for. And I look at it as the mindset of, hey man, we're going for it. We're bringing this kid up, and we're showing some moxie. It's a moxie here. It's a big move. It's a gutsy move, But they didn't. They're sticking with the plan. I'm okay with it. I really am, because we won't be having this conversation ever again. There will never be. There will never be another training camp where we're talking about, will Francisco Lindor break camp with the team? That's it. You have seen the rise of Francisco Lindor through the system. He will go. He will season himself for a few months here, and that's it. Welcome to baseball from here, Francisco Lindor. And I do think, now that this decision is made, think about it in the dog days of the summer. You're going to need energy. That people talk about the trade deadline and all that. Bringing up prospects is one too. As Drubal, what was it, 2007? So I would say a few years ago because it's almost a decade ago now. But remember the jolt that he brought, that youth, and he came up, and if people thought he was going to be a temporary patch, and it turned out, man, off and running. And that was part of it. It was a spark. It was brought up from the minor leagues. This is a prospect on a different level than Asdrubal Cabrera at the time. This is a prospect on a different level than any of those guys as far as buzz and hype and people waiting to see him. So there's your mid-season call-up that just adds a jolt of energy, not just throughout the 25-man roster, not just them players, but throughout the stadium, throughout the city, throughout baseball, man. There's a shock point right there to kind of open things up and reinvigorate everything in the middle of a long baseball season. So that's the way I'm convincing myself that it's okay. It's a good thing there, and I'm with it, because again, like I said, it doesn't matter. We'll never have the conversation again. And if we are, then the whole world was wrong. The whole world was wrong if we ever again discuss whether Francisco Lindor is breaking camp with the major league team. So he'll pay his dues here, and soon enough, that young man will be down on the corner of Carnegie and Ontario. Now, I mean, hey, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. I was going to ask Mike about this guy because we've mentioned him a few times. It kind of came all the guys that we talked about, the Tyler Holtz and the Walters and all of these guys. How about Jerry Sands? How many of you guys, not even my radar went off when they signed Sands? I mean, he had the injury issues with Tampa, and his wrist was an issue. It still is a concern of the Indians, but this is a right-handed bat with some power. He hit that tape. We were talking about it yesterday, I think. That tape measure shot. They say it was one of the longest home runs at that ballpark there. But, that's a premium ability of being on that side of the plate and having some power, one that's not bereft throughout the Indians organization necessarily. So that's a player to keep in mind, but nobody was mentioning. I mean, not Mike, not Dan, not myself, not Gorman, none of the guys here. Everybody had other guys, Aguilar, all these other guys, but nobody was really looking in this direction, but they're looking now. That tape measure home run will do that anytime, and he's got a couple here. He's got his hands on the ball a little bit. He's got one home run, but he's batting nearly 400 here in spring, and he's a guy that I don't think he makes the squad. I don't, unless maybe they don't like something coming into the opening day, maybe somebody's injury concerns, maybe something like that could change things. But the way Terry Francona was talking, it sounds to me more like he's one of those guys that's 26 on their list, so he may have to go down and then come up and help the squad, but he seems like somebody that definitely has some potential there, and I like the fact that he bats from that side of the plate and has some pop in the bat. Maybe he ends up with that 25th spot on the roster, but that's a name that's kind of come, and I like those, man, those names that come out of nowhere, and maybe not some people, somebody is out there yelling right now, I knew who he was, but a lot of people, this is a guy that came out of nowhere, man, and that could be something that I think one way or another he's going to play a piece here perhaps in what the Indians, or at least get the chance to do that. But there's another guy in that. So as these names get whittled down, we're down within what, 11 days here, so these decisions get shorter and shorter, time to make them. And, Jason Kipnis, by the way, I believe he's playing today, looking to get himself going. That'll be good to see after taking some time off to rest, because he's going to be really key to what the Tribe is doing. Oh, speaking of guys that are key, we keep talking about them all the time. Maybe you missed it because it was a B game, a AAA game, but Carlos Carrasco, he made those AAA players look like AAA players. Terry Francona said it didn't even look like they tried on the other team. 5+ innings, 10 strikeouts for Carrasco. Clearly on pace and on track to start this season where he left off last year. That should give you goosebumps as an Indians fan, because that's what the Indians truly need. I think the lineup's going to be better than people thought. The lineup's going to take care of itself. That was one of the biggest keys to how this goes, is if this rotation pulls together like the second half of last season. Those two are coming out of spring looking like 1 and 2, looking exactly like you want them to look. So The rest of it is still a question how it's going to shake out, but, man, that's a great sign, man. And, again, it was against AAA batters, but that's nice. That's 2 strikeouts. That's mowing them down, man. I mean, that's facing 17 batters with 10 strikeouts. So hats off to that one there. That's what you should do when you're getting ready for it and you're facing AAA pitching. Let's go to the phones. Let's see where you're at as we're talking Tribe. Caller, you're up on the Sports Fix.
Yeah, good morning, J-Rocc.
Good morning in the afternoon, my friend Bruce.
Yes, a couple of things.
This is my man Bruce right here. Bruce, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. The Lindor thing doesn't surprise me at all. I said, it'd be June, I don't really have a problem with that at all.
And think about the buzz, Bruce. Think about the excitement when that kid comes up for the first time. And if the Indians are in the middle of what we hope that they'll be in the middle of doing, man, that I'm seeing just one thing fall into the other when you look at the Cavs and the end of their run, and then the Tribe, and then you get the kid up halfway through the season. I mean, there is potential here for Cleveland fans to have just a very enjoyable summer.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I do have a few concerns, though.
Of course. They're not going 162-0.
Oh, of course not. No, starting with the starting pitching.
Okay.
I mean, other than Kluber and Carrasco. After that, I don't know, in my mind, it's a little shaky. I have no faith in Bauer at all.
See, I hear you on that one. I hear you on Bauer. I'm okay. Well, let's see how he starts the season, but I hear you. I'm not as 100% sure that he's completely together, but we got to see, because right now they can hide behind we've been experimenting. So let's see what happens when the games count. But I'm with you. House has got me okay. I mean, yeah, he gets a little bit here and there, but I think House is going to be okay. I like him, but I do agree with you on 4 and 5.
Yeah, I have, I don't have a problem with House. I mean, House has this method of just like slinging the ball up there and hoping for the best.
But he works quick, though, and that's to a pitcher's advantage. He keeps that ball moving, makes those batters be ready for the next one,
Okay, Tomlin yesterday didn't impress me at all. I mean, he gave up 9 hits.
I know.
I mean, he kept the ball in the park, though.
That's amazing, because usually if Tomlin gives up 9 hits, 7 of them are solo home runs, But,
yeah, they're heading somewhere.
One of them still hasn't landed from last year, But
yeah, exactly. Now, I have, we still have a predominantly left-handed lineup.
Yes, we do. We got some switch hitters in there, though, but and that's why Sands may have more of a shot than people think, man, because that's power on the right-handed side, but it's also, untested and all of that. What do you think? I was talking about him. That's a guy nobody was really even really talking about. I mean, because he came in quietly, minor league deal, just to, hey, come to camp and see what happens, and but what do you think, man? Are you?
He had the bad wrist. You got to remember
exactly.
that.
Last year for Tampa Bay.
And I listened to the Angels broadcast the other night, and apparently they've seen this guy a few times. And they said, he has, extremely, immaculate power. And right after they said that, he hit the blast. But I mean, it was like scripted, and. But the thing of it is that, they said that he just can't stay healthy. And, that has to be a concern with whoever signs him,
no doubt.
Or wherever he ends up.
He's a big guy, too, man. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. He's a big guy, man.
Well, apparently, like I said, the Angels announcer have seen this guy, and they said, that he's always hit the Angels well, no matter who was pitching. So, the wrist is the major concern. But, I see him going to AAA and maybe a call-up, kind of like our Aguilera.
Aguilar?
I don't...
Yeah. I know you don't like Aguilar. You always tell me he's got warning track power in the majors.
Right. In the major leagues, he always hits to the warning track. He never shows any display of actual home run.
He's just got to find the right doctor. Just give him some time, man. Okay. As soon as I'm just kidding. Man.
Of course, but what about not to change from the Indians at all, but Chris Bryant that plays for the Cubs, he has like 10 home runs this spring, third baseman, and they're not thinking about bringing him up. So bringing Lindor up later is not any big surprise, I guess, to anybody. But,
right. I mean, that's why I'm saying, Mike, I get Mike's argument, but I kept disagreeing with him as I just didn't see the 3 months being the big deal. Like, I get it more from, he was looking at it more as he's just the player that makes you a better team. And I guess I do understand that, but I was looking at it more from the mindset of, hey, we're going for it. But if those
now,
couple
see, I'm
of months,
looking at it completely different. I'm looking at it like an organization that doesn't draw fans. If you wait till June to bring him up, and we get off to a hot start, obviously, you bring him up in June, you're going to fill the place.
Okay, but here's the flip side of that as an organization that doesn't draw fans, and I'm okay with him coming up later. But the flip side of that is if you start him from opening day, then you draw in April and May when nobody comes out to the baseball games. You know what I mean?
But
so
you've been there for the thousands of excuses of why people don't show up in April and May. It's too cold, my kids are at school.
Too cold, school, all the different things. It's too late, all of that. Although it'll be interesting with a little earlier start on some of those weekday games and stuff. But I know, Bruce, I know. So I just don't think it's the end of the world. And like I said, if worse come to worse, hey, you throw the plan out the window and call the kid up in 30 days. If he's at AAA hitting 500 in the first month of the season, then bring him up. He's obviously way ready to go. But I just don't see waiting until June being a killer. Now, it's not the greatest because they made the decision for a reason that bothers me, which is a financial reason, and I think we all know that.
Yeah, but we don't want to discuss financial with the Dolans.
You know what I mean? That's why it happened. So, okay, so be it. Wait 3 months. Hopefully, if the Indians are doing, to be honest with you, my optimism for the Indians season had nothing to do with Francisco Lindor. I didn't expect him to break camp. Now, after he had a good spring, I said maybe the Indians are talking about it. But I never expected that. So it's not like I thought we have to bring this kid up for us to have what I think is going to happen this season. So he wasn't part of my plan. So him not going means nothing to me. I'm okay with it. And I love the fact that he made it so hard to send him back down because he did. He made the Indians have to think about it, and they said, okay, you know what? We're sticking to our plan, man. And so whatever. And I'm ready for it when he gets here. Like I said, we're never, ever going to have this conversation again because say hello to Francisco Lindor. The only thing that bothers me is he doesn't get to be the new answer to that trivia question because if he gets called up, then he'll be like everybody else. I was hoping he would be like El Capitan, start opening day with the Indians, and then he'd be one of those rare players that was never a September call-up that just started at the major league level. There's only, as we know, there's only a handful of them in Indians history, and I thought that would have been interesting. But hey, so what, man? That's a trivia question, not real life.
Exactly. And no, but speaking about what you were talking about, a team that doesn't draw and the Dolans being, well, let's just say that,
thrifty.
Yeah.
Economic.
Yeah, I don't want to say cheap. But in the long run, by bringing him up on opening day would have solved a lot of problems as far as the money-wise because people would have came to see him and they could have paid him whatever they have to pay him in the future.
I agree. Mike had a hell of a point.
You can look at it that way, too.
None of this even matters, though. If he is what the Indians think he is, none of this service time talk matters because he could probably be a player that is the next player that, like Tampa did a few years ago, they'll take the risk. If he comes up I could see him after a couple of months signing a long-term deal with the Indians right off the bat. I could see that kind of scenario happening. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of the trend now for teams to try to do that and get it even earlier instead of a little bit later. Forget just buying out a few free agent years. Let's buy out arbitration and the whole thing, And if he is what you think he is, and Mike brought up the best point about it, is they did it with Yanni Gomes. who they only had, 9.5 months of actual hands-on experience with or whatever at the time, and they made that commitment. They have had their hands on Francisco Lindor since the very beginning of his career, and they know everything about him. So Mike had a great point. If that's the case, and he is the guy that you think he is and that everybody knows he is, then within a couple of months you just lock him up and you take care of it, and none of this even matters. And I could see that. I could see him, forget 2 years from now, I could see him this winter signing a long-term deal with the Indians, assuming that his progress continues the way it has.
Oh, I see that too. I don't
just
see
buy it
him
all out,
waiting around.
Know? Yeah.
Because if you remember, when we got Jan Gomes, we hadn't known nothing about him. We got him in the trade, and we basically just knew that he was a decent catcher.
Right. And the Indians know every pimple that Francisco Lindor has had in his entire career. They know everything, so why not? And that's where I think it's going to go. I don't think we're even gonna, none of this matters, because I believe he'll come up, he'll show a little sign of what he's got coming, and the Indians and him will get together and they'll sign this kid will sign a long-term deal and guarantee himself millions and millions of dollars before he's even had a full year in Major League Baseball. That's the way I see it going.
Okay, now with 10 days to go before opening day.
Yep.
Doesn't
that feel good to say that, baby? 10 days to go till opening day, man. Yeah.
I can't wait till I say tomorrow.
Yes, exactly, brother.
But 10 days is not that much. Now, in your opinion, is Tito still going to continue to play the people that basically aren't going to be on the roster? Because, I follow the games pretty much, on a daily basis. And, by the 7th or 8th inning, there's people on there, I can't even pronounce their names, Well,
I think you'll see that get less, but some of those guys you still got to, as you get more big league pitching, and you do got to look even at the guys that are going to start at AAA, because you kind of want to get a little of an idea for who your first couple call ups are going to be and stuff like that. But I agree with you. I think, and that's why we've seen in the last week a couple of big batch group of guys sent to the minor league camp, because now they'll start thinning that out. Like, it wasn't just Lindor, there was a half a dozen guys along with him that were shipped over to the minor league camp. So they've got the major league roster down to 40 as it is. And so,
right now,
so there's only 15 extra players hanging out now as it is. So you'll see probably a day or two from now another handful of guys reassigned.
Okay, now do these people get sent out like today, or do they get to stay with the club until the end of the spring training?
Well, it depends what the Indians want, because some guys just move over to the minor league camp completely. Some guys go to minor league camp, but they still have them practicing with the big league camp, but not playing in the games. Some people play in both games. It just depends on each individual player's, plan, like whatever their development plan is or whatnot. But it just depends on, what kind of exposure. When a guy's trying to ramp up and he hasn't gotten a lot of time, sometimes they'll have him doing both of them. But, for the most part, they go and they become now minor league camp guys, and they get out of the way. Because like you said, you got to start thinning the herd and getting ready for what's the real deal.
Right. I figured this would be the time that, with the 40-man roster, that you're kind of dividing it up on who's going to start opening day and put that lineup in, or
well,
are you just going to keep filling in with guys that are definitely going to be sent out?
Well, because it's not 100% science. It's not like by the last spring training game maybe that game you'll start your starting day lineup, but you're not gonna. It's not like pitchers are different. You got to build up their innings. So each time one's gonna go 4, then 5, then 6 innings and get themselves stretched out. But it's not like by the time you get into opening day, you have to have had your starting lineup batting every day for a week or two. So some of those guys may get some days off at the end of camp to go ahead and get their affairs in order, get whatever they got to do before the start of a long season, stuff like that. So I don't know that we'll see more than maybe a game or two at the end of spring. You figure you may see the 1 through 8, starting lineup here for these guys, perhaps.
Okay,
what
now,
do you think?
Next
question. Because there's no reason. You don't have to have. It's like I said. It's not like like in football where you have to have that first half where the starters go and then you get one last look at everybody. I think that just depends on where individual guys are getting ready for opening day. If a guy looks at, if Brantley looks at Terry Francona with 3 or 4 games to go and says I'm ready, then then he may not play every game the rest of the way. I don't know.
Well, I think 10 days. I think everybody gets at least one more start.
For sure.
That they're looking at for the starting pitchers.
For sure, yeah, absolutely, and a couple will get 2.
Right. Now, my question is, who has impressed you the most this spring out of the Tribe?
Oh, man. There's a lot of... See, that's one of the reasons I'm feeling so good, because I don't know that I got one answer to that question, man.
Well, Brandon Moss comes to mind right off the
Moss
bat.
is my A1. A1, you're right. Brandon Moss, absolutely.
Because
Carrasco and what he's done. Carrasco is high up on my list, what we've seen out of him so far here, most definitely.
Now, Carrasco is exactly what I expected him to be. He came in there, he throws strikes, he worked on a couple of things early and got that out of the way.
Yeah, but I still wasn't sold that it was going to come back. He ended the season one way. It's still not a guarantee how he's going to... I was worried about that, but I feel great about that. I like what I've seen out of Michael Bourne, which I've brought up before here on the show. At the bottom of the roster, I thought, man, it feels good to me to know that we've got 4, 5, 6 guys making it hard on who's going to be the 25th guy on the roster, because that lets you know that you've got 4, 5, or 6 guys that can help you out of AAA throughout this season, whether it's Holt, whether it's Walters, whether it's Aguilar, whether it's this guy or that guy or Jerry Sands or whoever. That's the stuff that's got me excited. I also like the fact that, I know they've had some errors, but I thought they've looked fundamentally a little better defensively here this spring. And I like the fact that the guys that need to start the season well are at least playing well offensively in spring training. I like that Lonnie Chisenhall appears like he's going to start the way he started last year. His problem wasn't the beginning, it was the second half. But he looks like he's going to feel good heading in. Carlos Santana looks like he's feeling good heading into the season. I believe offensively that the Indians are going to really surprise some people, because I just think they've got a good lineup. I just think they're going to have the kind of lineup that's going to give pitchers trouble, because you've got a lot of varying skill sets up and down. I know maybe I'm looking at it differently, but I think it's a well put together lineup, and I think getting through that middle part of the Indians is going to be a lot tougher than it's been in the last few years, because that's a fine line you walk trying to get through, even if you don't think Kipnis is going to bounce back. Trying to get through that Santana and Moss and Gomes grouping right there is tough, because you got 3 guys that can get you, and Santana will take walks, and he's going to and think about how good of a hitter Moss and Gomes can be if they're sitting there watching Santana take all those pitches from the guy. Like, they're good at work. He's good at working pitchers. So Moss is going to see maybe 2 or 3 or 4 extra pitches almost every time he comes to the plate, which gives him a little tiny bit of an advantage. I'm just telling you, I think offensively the Indians lineup is going to be much more consistent. There'll be a lot more of actually scoring 5 runs a night than scoring 10 runs on Wednesday and 2 runs on Thursday.
Exactly. Now, my biggest disappointment so far, of course, is Kipnis.
Well, he's been hurt, but, I'm with you there. But we haven't seen... it's not like he's played poorly when he did play. He's been hurt, obviously, and let's see what happens. But that's my biggest concern with him, is staying healthy. I think when he's healthy...
Okay, that's what I was going to get to.
Yeah,
do you think it's going to become an issue with, being hurt all the time? Or
Well, I'll tell you what, the tricky thing is, it's easy to go, well, if he's still got issues in 3 months, then we may be shifting guys over 90 feet to the left, and it may be Lindor and Ramirez going over to short or to second base, but you can't look at it that way. We were just talking the other day, 50-some million reasons why Jason Kipnis cannot just be tossed aside by the Indians. I think guys are giving up on him way, way, way too quickly.
I'm not
young.
giving up on on him. I just don't want it to become a chronic problem, that every time, he gets a hangnail, he can't play.
See, but that's the wrong way to put it because, guys would do that about Grady Sizemore, too, and I don't think that's fair, man. There's a reason that Jason Kipnis was called a dirtbag, man, because he's a hustler. He's a grinder, man, and Grady Sizemore was the same way, and he kept getting hurt, and when guys get hurt, man, giving you effort, I can't be that guy that's the guy, because there's a difference. I don't see it as he gets a hangnail and he takes a day off. He strikes me as a guy who just gets hurt a lot, and that's no good. Trust me, that's not a good thing, but he's so young. I think everybody's given up on Kipnis, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the outlier was the good run, but I don't think so, man. He's a good baseball player, and I think if he can stay healthy, he's going to show people that.
Okay. But,
I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about Jason Kipnis? What do you think?
Oh, I think he's going to be a good ball player if he can just stay healthy. I just don't want it to be, every couple of months he has something wrong with him. Now, I understand the oblique. You can't do anything.
You can't hit with that. Yeah, absolutely. His problem is that his injuries have prevented him from offensively, like we were talking about yesterday or whatever. He is not the whiz. He's not, over there going to be the defensive presence at second to where he can be poor offensively. He has to be a premium offensive player, and he's shown that he can be. But like you said, it's the kind of injuries that he gets that make it where you can try to play through them, but they limit your effectiveness. I'd almost rather, and please, I'm not saying break your leg. I'd almost rather you break your leg than tear an oblique, because you keep trying to come back with the oblique, but you hit 182 or something. You break the leg, at least you're off. You're not trying. Some of those injuries you try because you want to play so bad. You force yourself to play, but you're just not effective. That is part of his issue too. Let's see. He's playing today, right? So let's see how he looks out here today. It's been a couple of weeks, really.
Yeah, well, that leads us back to Grady Sizemore. Grady was the type of player that would run into the wall, sprain his wrist, say, tape me up, and I'll stay in.
Absolutely. And then a few years later, people are making fun of him for being a big waste of money. And I'm like, no way. The reason that he got that money... Yeah, it's because of how he played. It's because he threw himself into the wall, He did that for you, and then as a fan. He did that for you as a team and as a fan, and then you're going to call him injury-prone and a big waste of money. And I remember that last year, how many people on, for Indians Twitter, they all talk about how great of fans they are. I'll never forget watching that last year. Just, thanks for wasting, $5 million, Grady. Thanks for nothing, Grady. And I'm like, you know what? If Grady Sizemore played more like, I'll even say, I'm not, look, Albert Bell was a great offensive player, but he wasn't running into no wall for nobody. And if he played more like that, more like a selfish player, Grady Sizemore would still be collecting your money and would still be getting paid. And instead, you wouldn't love him anywhere near as much, because that's the things that made him what he was. It's the things that made him as loved as he was. And to watch the way they turned on a guy like that bothered me, because Grady Sizemore never showed up in a big scandal. I don't care about the pictures he sent his girlfriend. He never showed up in a big scandal. He never made your city or your franchise or you as a fan feel bad for anything you did. He did nothing but hustle. And then that last year, man, the Indians fan base that is so loyal did nothing but just, and that's why Twitter drives me nuts during Indians games. And there's a lot of great Indians fans on Twitter, don't get me wrong, but stuff like that bothers me. Now, if you want to go after, a guy that comes in and never plays and just is collecting a paycheck and that's what he's doing, then go after him. That's fine, but that is not what a guy like Grady Sizemore was. I don't even know how we went off into that, but end of the day, I think Jason Kipnis is going to bounce back and be okay. So hopefully he does, because if he doesn't, he may find himself having to move to the outfield very quickly, because they will move Lindor to short. They'll move Ramirez over to second base come this summer, and then Jason Kipnis will find himself being a DH and an outfielder. And we have a whole bunch of those already.
In my notes, the guy that I've been impressed with as a fielder is Martinez playing second base in Kipnis' absence. I mean, that guy's like a vacuum cleaner. He gets balls behind second. He gets, the ball that Santana doesn't want to chase after or whatever. And it seems like he gets everything, you know?
Do you feel like I do defensively that the Indians, maybe, I don't know if they're more focused. They look to me like, I don't know, maybe they're going to be much more average defensively here this year than they were last. I'm not even saying great. I'll take average, you know?
I think getting rid of Cabrera was the biggest thing the Indians did.
Yeah. Him and Swisher, obviously. Those are the two biggest
Swisher goes without saying. I mean, I was at games where Swisher missed balls thrown right to him.
They take you from worst to average, which is okay, or even slightly below average. It's still better than absolute bottom. I know that it's not, the top, but I'm curious to see, too, how much of that was an outlier. Mike Brandenberry and I have different opinions on that, whether the period of good defense was the fluke or the bad defense was the fluke, But,
well, I like Santana at first base. I mean, I think
too.
Santana gets to a lot of balls that, that
he's okay.
A normal first baseman wouldn't get to. I mean, he made a play a couple of nights ago where he got the
double play
grounder, threw it home, and then
the double play. He made an excellent play. I mean, that was a very good play, and I said, "Hey, good play there by Gomes and Santana, man." That was, and
exactly.
that's why I said I'm feeling decent about the Indians defensively. They've got me feeling like maybe, of course, they're going to make mistakes, but they're not going to be kicking the ball all over like they've never taken grounders before.
But he doesn't look like a guy that's only played first base for half a year.
He's been able to. He spent his off season getting ready for one position. He spent spring training in a comfortable position. I think that's going to pay dividends offensively and defensively for Santana. He's going to be much more relaxed. There's no doubt in my mind that him hitting 130 and 180 or whatever in the first 2 months of the season, that's what a lot of that was, the third base and all of that stuff.
And the catching and moving
absolutely.
the first.
I mean, this guy's playing 17 positions and trying to hit with power and premium at the same time. It was a recipe, and I thought it was a good idea. Stupid me.
And
it was
not
a
only
recipe
that, but it
for
showed
disaster.
what a team player he was willing to be,
That's what I liked about it. Now, that's why I liked him going to third base, because it showed, hey, I'm willing to do whatever, and that I liked, but it was a bad idea. It just turned out to be a bad idea.
Not a good idea from the start.
Bad
but,
idea.
You had to do something. I mean, you had to show that, Chisenhall, you can be replaced, and we'll replace you with a catcher if we have to.
And it opened him up, too. He finally became, at least until the second half of the season when he slowed down, he finally became the thing that his potential was supposed to be. He seemed like he finally unlocked it. And I think that Santana's challenge over there was part of that, too, because all of a sudden you're going, man, maybe I don't have a future with this team after all,
Well, to me, he's always going to be, Rudy Gregorio, the guy that batted 400 in the minor leagues and and couldn't hit, 160 in the majors. But, that's just who I compare him to because that's who, the story reminds me of, the guy that can hit. I got to tell you,
I see next season happening all over again. I think Chisenhall's going to be, I think maybe he's that guy. I think he's a guy that when he's hot. He's untouchable, and then he goes rock cold at the same time. And I think we may see that again here this year. He's going to be a streaky guy. I could see him. He's hitting well in spring. I could see him coming out of the gates blazing again here to start the season.
Now, going to our bench with Aviles.
Yeah.
It looks like he didn't, he must have slept all winter with a bat or something, because he looks like he's exactly the same, He hits the ball to right field if you need it. He'll hit the ball, in the gap if you need one, and occasional power. But, he just looks like, he could be an everyday player on some other team, and here he's a bench player. So
I agree. That versatility is why I've got that depth. That's why I've got such a high opinion, because I believe that top to bottom, the Indians, wherever you think they lack at the very, very top end, I think 1 through 25, one of the best teams in baseball as far as the versatility and the depth and being an actual baseball team. If you're a fan of baseball teams, this Indians team should appeal to you because they're not a decent team propped up around one guy. They're not an okay team with two superstars. They're really just a hell of a baseball team, I think, from top to bottom. And, I don't know. When you play Moneyball, that's what you're trying to build. And I think they've done that. So we'll see how it works.
But we're doing it the right way, though. I mean, we're building it from our own system.
I think so, And
again, with a couple added people put in there like Moss.
And all you can do is give yourself a window of opportunity. I brought this up yesterday talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA. Nobody will argue that they created the model for how you rebuild through the draft. You scrap your season for a couple years, you get first-round picks, you draft Kevin Durant, you draft Russell Westbrook, Durant was actually supposed to play for the Sonics. But anyways, you go through all that, and then you rebuild your team and you give yourself a 4, 5, 6 year window of opportunity, but they're at the back end of it now and they still haven't won a championship. Doesn't mean that they didn't do it right. They built it the right way, and sometimes it doesn't end in a championship. But I agree with you, not being a homer, I honestly believe that the Indians have built this organization the right way, and I think this year is going to be very fun because of it, Bruce.
All right, I'm looking for a fun season. Like I said, if they get off to a quick start, then there's like no holding them back.
That's it, man. That's the key. Let's get off to a good start, man, because I think they've shown the last few years that they get stronger. Terry Francona and these Indians have gotten stronger in each season in the second half. So if you start well, that's nothing but things to look through and blue skies down the run. Bruce, my man, great phone call. Who needs Mike Brandenberry? No, I'm just kidding, man. Mike will be here tomorrow.
No, we all need Mike Brandenberry.
That was a great call, man. Absolutely. Anything else, Bruce?
No, I got it. Thank you.
All right, my man. Great talk. Love talking Tribe. I hate talking to myself. When it's just myself, I know you guys may enjoy it, but I love having I'm a conversationalist, man, and I love having the conversation going back and forth. Great call, Bruce. Good Indians talk. Tribe back at it again today. 10 days to go, baby, till opening day. Let's take a break. Get the final segment in here. It's Sweet 16, baby. March Madness back upon us. Big Blue Nation here in Cleveland. Will they exit Cleveland while they're still playing basketball, or will it end here in Cleveland? I say it does. Well, let's talk about that, preview today's games, and wrap this bad boy up when we come back here on the Sports Fix.
In the sun, it's gone and you can't tell that one goodbye. Oh, put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
Throwing you the best sports commentary in town. The Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out fantasyjocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Yeah.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's Fantasy Sports Superstore, FantasyJocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys. Listen up.
No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date. No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it.
It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Hey, Cleveland, this is Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your... Welcome back to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc here with you, wrapping things up for the day. Welcome back to March Madness, as they've been gone for a couple of days, and now the Sweet 16's here. Welcome back to Cleveland March Madness. It's been a couple of years since the NCAA tournament was here. I was here the last time when Ohio State was one of the squads here. Marquette, there was a good little bracket here, but this is the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. It has descended here. There's 4 good games on tap today and tomorrow, and then 2 each on Saturday and Sunday as the middle weekend. 16 games here in the NCAA tournament. This is always fun because we kind of narrowed it down. You've got a few shockers, no pun intended here. You've got some heavyweights in this thing as we get back to playing some baseball today, you guys. And I'll tell you right now, looking at the bracket, J-Rocc here, phones are open 24 hours. You can hit us up no matter what, whether we go off the air or not. 216-539-7535. Bruce, got to give it to him. Fantastic phone call last segment. 216-539-7535. Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. And as we get back into it, looking at the brackets here, I do not, once again, maybe I'm just dead set on history happening here in Cleveland. I don't have Kentucky finishing this thing out. As a matter of fact, I have it ending for them here in Cleveland. Talking about shockers, I've got 2 shockers because I've got Wichita State knocking off Notre Dame and the University of Kentucky. And I've got Wichita State in the Final Four coming out of these 2 matchups here. I think Kentucky takes care of West Virginia, and I think the ride ends for Notre Dame at Wichita State's hands here. Looking at the other brackets, Wisconsin and North Carolina, I think even though I had North Carolina in my big bracket beginning the tournament, now that I've got a chance, if you want to call it a second chance, to look at it just from this perspective, I don't like the way North Carolina necessarily played in the first 2 rounds of the tournament. Maybe my initial prediction will turn out to be correct, but I've re-bracketed here in this look at it. I think Wisconsin comes out of that matchup. I just don't like the way North Carolina played. And I've got Xavier knocking off Arizona. So I've got Wisconsin and Xavier as the other matchup there to head to the Final Four, and I went ahead and took Wisconsin. So I've got one side of the bracket, Wichita State and Wisconsin in the Final Four. On the other side of things, North Carolina State, I've got them knocking off Louisville and continuing their march into the Elite Eight. Michigan State, Oklahoma, I'm sticking with them. I had Michigan State on my big bracket, and I'm going to stick with them here. As a matter of fact, my Final Four on that side of the bracket is exactly the same as I predicted before the tournament started. I've got Duke knocking off the Utes, and I've got UCLA keeping their Cinderella run going. I've got them knocking off Gonzaga here and heading into the Elite Eight. And then, as I said, Michigan State, Duke. My Final Four re-bracketed is Wichita State, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Duke. I've got Wichita State shocking all the way through into the championship game against Duke, but I am sticking with the Blue Devils as my national championship pick. We'll see the first 4 of those games. What do you guys got? Let me know, by the way. Hit me up on Facebook and Twitter. But the first 4 of those happening here, of course, the Cleveland bracket, 7:15 and 9:45 Eastern Time. Wichita State and Notre Dame starts things off first. West Virginia, Kentucky will follow 20 minutes after the end of that game. The other games happening today, North Carolina, Wisconsin, 7:45 start, and 20 minutes after that one, Xavier and Arizona. So some good ones. So, man, that late one's a good one to stay up to. I think that's going to be worth your time there on some late night basketball. I know that's probably going to be about a 10:15, 10:30 start time there, but both of those late games are good, but I'll tell you, I think Xavier is going to knock off Arizona there in that one. Keep representing the OH, baby. Got to keep hope alive. Should be some good basketball. We'll talk about those games tomorrow. And, hey, you know what? West Virginia says, J-Rocc, I don't know what you're talking about because Kentucky's not going past today. Did you see Daxter Miles? He said, I give them their props, but they're going to be 36-1 after this one because we're knocking them out. He said the Wildcats don't play hard, and he said we shouldn't fear them. They should fear us. We're coming for them. West Virginia's got a little moxie here as the 5th-seeded West Virginia Mountaineers looking to knock off the Wildcats here tonight. Bob Huggins is one of only 2 coaches to face John Calipari at least 10 times and have a plus 500 record, and he's not just plus 500, he's 8-2 lifetime against Calipari's teams. That means nothing when you're looking from year to year because all the teams are different, but Bob Huggins has always been able to get his squad up to the challenge. Can they do it tonight? Might as well. We busted everybody else's brackets, man. Maybe they do it. Maybe it doesn't even get to Wichita State, Notre Dame. Maybe West Virginia says they are taking care of business here today. West Virginia has one of the best defenses in the country. Their press has forced turnovers this season. 28% of the opposition's possessions. Think about what I just said. Basically 30%. That's 1/3 just about of every possession for the other team ends in a turnover. 1 in every 3 times the other team has the ball, you steal it or whatever, force a turnover. That's best in the country. That's going to be an interesting challenge for Kentucky for sure. Good basketball on tap at the Q for sure, guys, tonight. Gonna be a good one. We're gonna talk about all of this tomorrow. Look ahead to tomorrow's 4 games on slate. We've got Mike Brandenberry in the house. We'll talk some Cavs, we'll talk some college hoops, talk some Indians, Francisco Lindor. I will try to get Mike Brandenberry off the 480 bridge here and see if he's up to talk about it, and we'll do all of that. We'll get Jonathan Knight here in the house as well. And don't forget, tomorrow, Vince McKee, the author, our friend, he has got a big announcement coming. It's a cool deal. It's a really cool little thing, and it's really cool that the Sports Fix is where he's going to break it. It's a good opportunity for him. It's some good exposure, and tomorrow you'll find out exactly what we're talking about. Vince McKee is going to join us, and we'll talk about his latest book, LeBron James, Redemption of the King. LeBron and the Cavs tomorrow look to continue that redemption. So we're going to talk about all of that. Jonathan Knight's here. Vince McKee is here. Mike Brandenberry's in the house. We're talking Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and Cavs and Indians and Browns. Oh my, all over the place, baby, as we do the Sports Fix thing and wrap it up on a Friday. Guys, thank you very much Another fantastic broadcast. Thanks to John McMullen. Really good to have John back in the house after a couple-week absence, and looking forward to him being a part of the regular schedule now back on Thursdays instead of Mondays as he used to be, and can't wait to have him back on next week. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to Bruce for the great phone call and so much more. Whew. All right, now I'm going to get off here, do my thing, and then hit the gym so that I can do the basketball thing tonight and the Tribe thing as well, as the Indians are playing it just about an hour and a half from now, 4 o'clock this afternoon. So should be a fun evening of sports. Tribe, and then basketball, and guess what? More basketball tonight. 4 games on tap. We'll see you tomorrow to talk about it all. Same bad time, same bad channel, live at noon, baby. Where else? Right here on the Sports Fix Radio Network. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. And we will see you tomorrow right here on the Sports Fix.
But it's only one in me. Let me make that very clear. Yeah, I'm from that terminal. You can see the lake from here. Faith in my teams, we keep getting closer every year. But we got the king, though, so hopefully we overcome. Yes, I have a dream, and I know I ain't the only one. Modell tried to steal my heart, but we brought it back. Thanks to Cleveland Clinic, now they call them Kiss the Cardiac. Rock Cars, Science Center, Tower City, all of that. Warehouse District, Euclid Corridor, and all the flat. You know that I'm a Tribes fan, and I love Slimans. Crockett Park's the perfect place for me to spend some time in. Baby, this is Cleveland. It is so much more to us. You can even go to Severance Hall to see an orchestra.
Cleveland.